Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us for this panel this afternoon. First, I'd like to thank Kosovo House for inviting us all here and giving me the opportunity to open this session on AI and construction. I was fortunate to experience Kosovar hospitality firsthand last year in a visit to work on a robotic brick assembly system in Pristina. I'm very happy to be here again with you all. So, just to introduce myself briefly, my name is Sandy Curth. I am a postdoc at MIT in building technology, and I also have a company called Forma Systems, which builds generative design optimization software. So, if you're wondering what that means, hopefully we'll discuss it at length here in a few minutes, but essentially finding ways to make buildings more efficiently, leveraging emerging technologies like machine learning. So, to begin our conversation today, I'd like to share two critical challenges and two possible futures. Then we'll introduce everyone and get into the discussion. So, first and foremost, we need to find a way to build faster. Between now and 2060, we will actually need to double the amount of livable floor area on Earth to meet the current pace of urbanization. This is an incredible challenge. Second, we also have an incredible shortage of labor. So, in the US, we'll be short nearly 500,000 construction workers for next year's projects throughout the country. And in Europe, I believe this number is closer to 2 million. Again, a massive challenge. So today, we'll ask ourselves what technology actually has to offer when it comes to addressing these challenges, and which technologies can actually be adapted by the relatively conservative world of construction quickly enough to both create value and make a meaningful impact. So I'll just give you two examples, shamelessly lifted from my lab mates at MIT, who are doing excellent work, I think. The first is that we can create machine learning models, or AI, if you want to use a much more general term, that can be applied to early stage design in buildings and even cities. So basically, we can create a digital twin, which I'm sure we'll hear a little bit about, of buildings and larger urban frameworks, and then transform that into data to feed a machine learning model, which allows us to produce relatively meaningful and accurate input for early stage design. And this is a very powerful tool, I believe. The second opportunity I see is in the rapid development of AI-driven digital infrastructure and how that interfaces with our construction and real estate workforce. So despite the fact that we are very, very short on labor, we now have the opportunity to make even an apprentice plumber something of an expert, by having a well-trained AI agent in their ear speaking whatever language they prefer. Now, we're only just beginning to start to see the impact of this, but I think if you go to a construction site today, you'll actually notice there's lots of workers talking to ChatGPT on their phone, trying to figure things out already. So that in itself is also an incredible opportunity, but ties into the real challenges of creating trust and real accuracy in the kind of information those people are receiving to do that work. So, summarizing how this relates, especially in the European context, I think here we have perhaps the best opportunity to actually align on AI in construction, because there's much better ties between research and industry. So, at MIT, it can take a decade for one of our technologies to actually translate out to industry, simply because of the lack of interconnectedness or supportive policy. Here in Europe, I have many colleagues who come up with an idea, and a year later, they're building it at scale with a company, whether it be a massive material supplier or a prefabrication factory. And having that integration allows for faster deployment of these very rapidly changing technologies. So I'll stop there, and we can jump into the messy details with our wonderful panel. Thank you so much.
No, thank you. Thank you, Sandy, and good afternoon, everyone. My name is Tarja Stephens, and I'm honored to be moderating today's panel. And to get started, I would like to each one of you to introduce yourself and tell a little bit about yourself. Dimitri?
I think I'm the only remaining member of the old generation on this panel. I feel my age. So I'm chairman of a company called Titan Materials that does cement and other building materials. I think one of the reasons I'm here is that we did invest in the only cement production facility in Kosovo 15 years ago, and we are a very happy investor in Kosovo. As a matter of fact, when we talk later, I will tell you how, in some funny way, our AI journey as a company in some ways started in Kosovo, which is not something one would expect. I ran the company for many years. Now I'm the chairman. Somebody else is doing all the hard lifting. And I spend my time at the European Roundtable for Industry as head of the Climate Change and Energy Transition Committee, trying to see how Europe can get its house in order. And we're not doing a very good job of it yet.
Hi, everyone. So I'm Alice Charles. I think that's on. I'm Alice Charles. I'm a Director for Cities Planning and Design in Arup. Arup is a multinational design engineering firm. We have over 20,000 staff. We operate in 144 countries in the world from 97 offices. So we design and build all kinds of infrastructure. I'm an urban planner by background. I think the reason I'm here is because we've been doing a lot of pan-European housing work. Secondly, we have been doing work in Kosovo recently. And thirdly, I think what made me actually agree to do this is my husband lived in Kosovo during the war, so I heard a lot about it over the years.
Hi, my name is Mentor Pllana, and I'm representing here Pllana Ventures. Pllana Capital is an investment management company. Instabuilt is a construction system, green construction system, certified for 2 continents and already built in 2 continents. And also Cherry Communities, future of the living, already, as I said, built in 2 continents. But today I would love to frame the discussion between the problem and the solution. So imagine in Europe, we need to build 5 million homes every year. And in US, should be built like 13 million homes in the next 10 years. And imagine we have a technology instead, in the United States, it takes like 90 days to frame a house of 2,000 square feet or 200 square meters. And we have a construction system that we can frame that house in 9 hours. So already did, and already designed, engineered, actually from Kosovo, and certified in Europe and certified in the United States. And also, what I want to say is that we have an innovation center that is around 60,000 square feet or 6,000 square meters, 70 engineers in Europe and US. And as I said, I want to say today that we have to go from, cannot do mentality to actually can do mentality. I already have actually discussed this issue and this possibility in Las Vegas Blueprint Conference, in Housing Alliance in Denver, and we showcase that it's possible. Imagine moving from months and years to days and hours, and already we have, and today it will be a pleasure to show you that is possible, and involving AI and piece of software, and AI as a physical hardware is a solution to go. And that's possible from Kosovo worldwide.
Yeah, thank you. My name is Ertion. I am a CEO at Lika Holding. Lika Holding is a real estate company here in Switzerland, focused in both investing in real estate, which means that we are owners or we purchase and do acquisitions. We do the development where we can create a concept, and then finally we do the execution. And as well, that was finally, as well we do the management of whatever was built. If this is, for example, a apart hotel or a hotel and everything else. So with this perspective, what I can say is that Lika Holding or Lika Group is kind of has a system level view on the issues with construction and the urban planning and everything else. And we see where the demands in the market clash, let's say, with the regulation, and maybe clash with what different local governments, for example, have in their head. Part of the question here is affordable housing, and how do you achieve that? Simply reducing material cost, maybe it's not enough. So a lot of regulation is needed in order to make sure that the investment is done where the affordable housing is. and how this affordable housing is bankable as well. So there are the issues that are brought up are multifaceted. We will try to bring our thoughts on the different perspectives. Yeah, and it would be a pleasure. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much for introductions, and I think this is a great start. And Alice, I know your time is very tight, so I'm going to start my first question with you. That while the global superpowers race right now the dominance in foundational AI models, where can Europe really win by executing AI in construction, and why is this sector such a great opportunity right now?
So I guess in terms of Europe, I see the pros and cons of AI. So all of our staff are leveraging AI. And I think one of the things that we've really had to do as a foundation to make sure when we were rolling out AI to all of our engineers, architects, urban planners right across the world was that we had really reliable data that was informing that AI. And that we were training our staff to be prompt engineers. So otherwise, we've actually banned things like ChatGPT, right? Because you cannot, we have created our own system, we've rolled it out through our CTO, we've trained our staff, we've taught them to be prompt engineers, we've ensured we've quality data informing everything that we do. And that is the only way that we can reliably leverage AI and use AI as designers and builders of the built environment. So that's within our organization. But equally, the other thing that we find ourselves delivering a lot of at the moment, and there's been a little bit of talk about it in Davos, is data centers. And data centers require a lot of energy and a lot of water. And some of the decisions that we're starting to see now in the built environment is, on the one hand, this is an ideal location for a data center. On the other hand, there's a housing crisis in that city. So if you are to roll out the industrial development that has been sought because of AI, then you may not have enough energy and water to accommodate the housing within that city. So, I am the first to say my grandfather was an engineer, an immigrant, building the Empire State Building. And I think if he came back today, he'd fire me because it took 1 year to build the Empire State Building then. My goodness, it would take us at least 10 now. So clearly, we are an industry that hasn't innovated, right? So whilst other industries have innovated, we haven't. But in the issue of housing, I want to take a step back to look at how we need to think about it systemically, and AI has a place throughout that system. So I guess what we see in relation to housing is politicized. Right? And we often see governments, when they're elected, introducing very piecemeal interventions to solve the problem as opposed to holistic interventions. And when you think about it in relation to housing, there's both demand side and supply side challenges that give rise to the problem. But if I just focus on some of the supply side challenges, one of the issues, believe it or not, in every city in the world is we have loads of vacant buildings. Vacant residential buildings and vacant real estate buildings that are not used. So if you have a housing crisis, that's your very first place to look, right? Very first place. I will accept that in terms of converting offices, it can be difficult, right? It needs more work. It needs people like us to try and solve that problem. But for buildings like hotels that no longer, have a business case to make them viable, it's very easy to convert them. But equally, we also see the impact of short-term rentals within our cities. So many short-term rentals are actually being used for housing. So we need to monitor how much of that we have and legislate for bringing some of that back into rental use. So that's immediate stock that's there. That's what you do when you have a crisis. The other side is, right across cities around the world, we have so many houses, new housing development, that is stuck in either the permitting system or it's just out of the permitting system, but it's not being built. We have regulated to the point that we've slowed things down, right? So everybody seems to have a view on whether somebody should be able to live in a house or not within a city. So we need to take a long, hard look at our regulatory systems and how can we fast track that? How can we get permission for development much more quickly? And AI has a role to play there too.
Amazing.
So I think the other side is land. So if you're thinking about planning for your city, planning for your housing supply in the medium and long term, you equally need to plan for transit-oriented development. You need to ensure if you are a public authority, like for example, we're building the 5th line of the Copenhagen Metro and we're using AI to design it. But they very cleverly thought about how they would pool government assets into one single vehicle and roll out their metro, and alongside those metro stations, housing, which they did as joint ventures with developers. So, and equally, as they rolled out those stations in the city centre, they revitalised those industrial heartlands that were no longer fit for purpose. So I think for how AI is an enabler, it's not the be-all, end-all. Yes, we need to totally revitalise our construction sector, but in housing, you need to think about the whole issue holistically to address both the demand side and supply side challenges.
Amazing. Thank you. What a great overview. And now I would like to ask Dimitri, same way, right now what we discussed, construction is one of Europe's most capital intensive, but at the same time least digitalized sectors. What is the single biggest challenge, bottleneck, and what would be that solution that you see in your experience?
I have a different perspective because I come from the building materials side. But the starting point is the same. I saw a chart put together by BCG a year or so ago, and productivity is all the rage, right? Everybody's saying, how can Europe improve its productivity, its competitiveness? Will AI really lift things? And there's a wonderful chart that shows that over 50 years, this chart shows the improvement in productivity in the economy overall, globally, and the improvement in productivity in the construction industry. It is actually negative over 50 years. So we're less productive building a home today, to your point, than we were 50 years ago. That's crazy. And I would argue, and we shouldn't focus too much on AI because we live in the physical world, right? That there are 4 drivers right now that are driving change much faster than any time before. So the first thing that's driving change is AI, because it gives us a number of tools. And if you look at we can talk maybe later about how we are transforming the way we are producing our operations, how we use all kinds of AI in designing our products, in running our factories, in overviewing with drones our quarries and so on and so forth. So AI is one of the drivers because it gives us tremendous opportunity. The second is decarbonization. Building materials have a very high carbon footprint. And we have been forced, not only in Europe, but especially in Europe because of carbon pricing, but elsewhere, to find ways to decarbonize. That has changed our mindset completely. Because for many years we were selling commodities. We're selling, this is a building materials, we'll find a good engineer, we'll find a good architect, we'll say, we have a good product, it's competitive cost-wise, it's good quality, buy it. We never really needed to understand the use of the project. So we were never really involved in the building part. Construction was not, we were twice removed. And now, in order to build, to design materials, which are a small part of the cost, but we can improve how quickly you build the building, what's your carbon footprint in the building, we have to really understand what those people want. So for the first time, we are involved in really understanding how to build. Sorry. So, and tear things down. So that's the second thing that's going is decarbonization. The third thing is, for the first time in a long time, we have labor shortages. And in many of the countries, and I think Kosovo is one of them, Greece is one of them, the US is increasingly one of them, we don't have the people we need to build the houses. And the fourth thing is affordability. Affordability of housing in many parts of the world is becoming a huge issue. So we, as a construction material company, have decided a long time ago that if we stay in our little corner and not try to get involved in in this whole picture will be somebody else's lunch. So we are actively involved, and we can talk about how, for example, in Kosovo, we now sell cement with a 30% lower footprint, a carbon footprint, than was traditionally the case, using a number of technologies. How we have increased production capacity by using AI. How we're getting into prefabrication so as to cut time. And so we are trying to become part of the solution, but it's fairly clear that this is an effort that has no silver bullet, and we have to cooperate with the developers, with the architects, with the planners, with the engineers in a way that we have never done in the past. And frankly, we don't know how to do that.
And that is a great bridge now to really deep dive into solutions. So I'm going to be now asking Mentor, what are the actual solutions that you have seen? AI now reducing time, rework, waste in that real construction projects? Or is there still mostly hype? What is your experience?
I think that the problem is that we are talking about projects and we have to move to platforms. The solution is platforms. And the platform that has, infinite growth possibility. This is number one. Number two is, what is the elephant in the room? Elephant in the room is that we don't have, any more people. Who's going to build, our homes? So we have to have, a system that can actually build by robots. And that's AI. But imagine no people on production line. This is, number two. Number three. When we say fragmented, is that imagine we have very big problem with the local building codes. We tried to build in Kosovo, imagine 26,000 homes and apartments in the last 25 years. This is what we have done. So we have built in the last 25 years 26,000 homes and apartments, so a lot of experience there, and we know what we're talking about. And to disrupt construction industry, again, it's all about building codes. And if you go in Germany, everybody was telling us, Mentor, if you go to Germany, you cannot build there. You don't know building codes there, but we build in Germany. Then, they said, okay, if you come to Switzerland, then don't come to Switzerland. It has higher, standards and better building codes, and you cannot build here, but we build also here. We build schools in Switzerland. Then France, Netherlands, and Belgium, and all over Europe. And then, okay, don't go to Texas. Hurricane, tornado, you cannot build there. So we build also there. What I'm trying to say is that construction industry has to go from on-site to off-site. So from construction to manufacturing. And it's all about compressing time. So if you build a house today on traditional way, it takes 6 months to 24 months. What if I tell you that we built a house, very energy efficient, and within 6 and 12 hours. 200 square meters, 2,000 square feet, we built it. And imagine highly energy efficient that it takes only 20% of the energy to heat and cool. So if you do something in Switzerland, you will pay, you need 500 euro, to heat that house. With our houses, you will need only 100 euro. If you go to Texas, you need to cool that house, you will need only $100. So what does it mean? That it means that affordability is on the play. So sustainability, affordability, and now we are talking about accessibility. If we want to have actually housing industry accessible and affordable, we have to have AI. But AI in itself should not work as an actually mechanical tool. It should be working on simplification, standardization, and scalability. Standardization on design, engineering, and also certification. So design, it means that we have to have automotive industry into the play. In 1915, in New York's, street, we had actually one, car, Henry Ford car, and then carts in the street. And 40 years later, we had, the opposite. All the streets were filled with cars, and then we had only one horse car there. Why? Why only 4 years? And what I'm trying to say is that in construction industry, this is a Kodak moment. This is a moment of change. And I think that the industry already changed, but it should be a platform, not a project. Everybody's talking about profit and project, but nobody's talking about product and process and people. So people is a foundation, then the process, and then you have to have a product. Today we have a product. I'm telling you that I'm not talking about problem. Problem I see as a possibility. So I'm talking about a potential and about a solution that we already delivering in Europe and also in US. So imagine one module, one bedroom, fully furnished, everything 98% finished on factory, 2 modules, 2 bedroom, 3 modules, 3 bedroom, coming together on 3-4 stories, and imagine multifamily, senior housing, micro apartments coming in a matter of, 18 to 24 days. I'm not talking about 18 to 24 months, so it's a compression of time. So AI role is actually to raise productivity, actually to bring optimization to the play. This is AI. And if we have now the, piece of software that we know now, it's a knowledge-based economy, we know now how to build the entire process from A to Z, then who is going to build that? Then we have physical, AI into the play. So we should have robots. And then we have AI producing AI, and we have robots producing robots. And then that's why this is a solution how you actually have the housing solution here. This is the topic that Donald Trump yesterday talked about it. It was around 20 minutes on the World Economic Forum, affordability. So I think that, again, thank you for being here, in this panel. But I think that we are presenting a solution, and we are saying that from Kosovo, worldwide is possible. And in Kosovo, we have a great ecosystem in Europe, and also in United States, we have a great diaspora, actually as an enabler, and we are delivering it. So thank you. I'm sorry, it was a bit longer, but I had to make, the sense and the context that I said to make the context clear.
Absolutely, and no, this is a great, you put so many great things, so I'm going to actually put this now in Sandy, that we talked about in your keynote as well. Let's talk about the trust, because there's so many levels now, workflow, processes, platform, talent. How can we really make sure that now it's trusted in this very safety-critical environment? So what is your take on experience?
I think this is a very critical question, and I'm actually having a little more faith in the idea of being able to trust these tools just listening to our panel, because I know you're all kind of in more executive positions in these companies, but you have a grasp of the real challenges, clearly, coming from a person who is trying to actually build these tools from scratch. And the real issue with trust is more, I wouldn't even call it trust, I would call it accuracy, because honestly, people do trust these tools. They're very good at making you trust them. They're engineered to be like that, like Facebook is engineered to be fun to look at, ChatGPT is engineered to make you like it. That doesn't mean it's right or that you're right. And as a result, we see companies like Arup having to build all of their own specialized tools so that they don't get into massive issues. And building on that, I think the one thing that we all really need to consider when you start to interface with these emerging AI tools for productivity in the workplace or for industrial automation is that you have to be maintaining your data very carefully. And this is something that's become very, very sloppy in the world and will continue to. Like, I genuinely don't know how we stop it, but the more we use these tools very casually, the more we produce really low quality information, For every student who's asking ChatGPT or Claude how to do their civil engineering homework and getting, middling answers, you're expanding that component of the data set that all these tools operate on. And as a result, you may see diminishing returns. I think we will probably address the problem before that becomes a reality, simply because of the, economic potential behind the tools. People will handle this. But in the meantime, we're in both a very exciting and very dangerous phase where you could go very deep into the world of automation or AI and be completely wrong. And so I think, there is still a place for real engineering and human checks. But it's an exciting future.
I think we've also seen that. Sorry, I just have to pick up on your point because it's so important. We had a terrible fire in the UK, Grenfell Tower, and whilst it's still subject to legal, ongoing civil legal proceedings, our fire engineers were brought in to investigate, after the fire. And, I think it actually, we had to bring specialist fire engineers from all over the world for that particular project. And I think it traumatized us in terms of what can go wrong. They were using modern materials to clad a building, but what can go wrong when either the materials are not fit for the location or you have poor quality construction. And whilst it's slightly different to AI, the fire engineers have managed to infiltrate what can go wrong when you don't do something new correct into our firm, that we really, really think a lot about AI, and we check every single thing that we do very, very thoroughly to make sure we're not making the wrong decisions. And by the way, another thing that we've really had to do in terms of the rollout of AI as well is bring our staff back to the office more, because we need to sit round and have conversations about what we've produced with the assistance of AI to make sure that that quality checking is happening. But also, I tell everyone in the organization, human intelligence is critical. And often in terms of thinking about how you solve a problem, start with human intelligence, and AI can assist you. So don't lose sight of human intelligence.
That's a great insight, and I think that's where the productivity and the potential is so huge with an AI. But I would like to now give a question to Ertion, that what would take for lenders and investors to really trust these AI-informed decisions, and where do you see the short-term return? Is it like you focus everything, or could it be scheduling, material optimization, cost control, quality assurance? There's so many options in your expertise. What would be the short term that you would focus?
Yeah, so short term for us has been mainly sorting our data, organizing our data, making sure that everything that we have worked on is based on international standards, data that we can share and we can integrate into BIM softwares, and that we can then deploy softwares like Power BI or other, let's say, specific softwares to create to show and to make, let's say, presentation on what has been the past, right? Because lenders would like to believe what you have done in order to say, yes, you can do this again in the future, right? And I think this is the first part. What we can do inside our organization. I fully agree with the point that Sandy brought. AI depends a lot on data that is being provided and the training that is being provided. I think, for example, let's say the vehicle is a closed system, that's why going into a full autonomous car, you can do it because you are relying on systems that you have very, very tightly controlled, and everything is quite close, and there is a lot of, let's say, standardizations that are happening. Standardizations in terms of interfacing, which is very, very important. In construction, the same thing has to happen. For us as a system level, let's say, real estate player, the majority of the cost is actually in the system, in the permitting process, right? So basically, I know that I have, let's say, a certain land that has this kind of volume. However, I have to fulfill many building requirements, many codes, as Mentor mentioned. And each code depends, and it's tuned specifically for also different municipalities, or here in Switzerland, for example, different cantons. And each, not only you have to meet the civil engineering requirements, right? You have to meet fire hazard, as well as what is most difficult is the, for example, the nature preservation or image preservation requirements that Switzerland, for example, is very strong on. Denkmalschutz, it's called, I think it's in German. So, where you have to understand exactly how this building fits in an architectural level. So, in that way, you cannot simply let AI to generate automatically a design for you and then submit an application to the municipality, although you can maybe integrate all the different requirements into an AI system to automatically generate something that is compliant, fully compliant. You have to still do the human communication as well, and as well as give the artistic touch. I am not sure, so I am from profession, I'm an engineer, I'm not an architect or an artist, but I'm not sure AI has reached the level acceptable and let's say from the point. Coming back to the banking, what I would see as very important is in terms of central planning is basically to create a system so that the banks can understand that this project is needed in the market, right? Because in order for the bank to be able to lend, has to understand that what you will reach will be used by people in the future, and that the demand is high enough to absorb the supply that exists. And the supply is not only you, but it's the other developers as well that are building in the market as well. So a full integration is needed.
I'm going to have to run, unfortunately, in a second, but I do want to make a point about finance just before I leave. And so I suppose what we generally see within the financing world is that the infrastructure financiers sit in one place and the real estate financiers sit in another place, and mixed-use development doesn't really sit anywhere, and housing generally doesn't really sit anywhere. It doesn't get the same dedication that you see in the financing world as other assets. And right now, in the real estate sector, investment is notoriously short-term. So, the areas that are attracting investment right now are data centers and life sciences, primarily in the financing sector. And the only place where we're actually seeing the infrastructure guys, the infrastructure investors and the real estate investors come together for the first time is in relation to data centers, because they need energy and water. So what I think is, in relation to financing, we actually, to enable us to deliver the housing that we need at the scale that we need, we actually need long-term finance, and that's pension funds. So in Europe, if we are to deliver the housing that we need to attract pension funds into investing for the long term in housing projects.
Amazing. Thank you. Yes, please.
A bit on this whole. I want to build a bit on the trust issue, because I think it's an important one. It doesn't only relate to AI. So if I were to build your house and you say, I have this great product, it's new, we have a better version, it's 80%. There's a 20% chance your house will crumble, but that's okay, we'll make a better one next time. So we can't afford to do that, right? We have to get it right the first time. So in order to make that happen, society has created very prescriptive, detailed regulation. And when it comes, for example, now in building materials, which I know better, we can do a lot of stuff very differently, but the regulation says you must use so much limestone, so much of this, so much of that. It doesn't say you can create a material that has those qualities, and if those qualities make Sandy happy, I'm okay with that. So we cannot really experiment. And the question I have, and I assume that for you as well in your work, the regulatory framework prevents a lot of creative ideas from happening. So one of the key issues I think we have is, how do we create that opportunity to experiment, to create trust in a way that allows us to move ahead much faster than we're doing, because we're moving very slowly.
No, and that's a great, and now talking about agile and really being that competitive advantage. So Sandy, kind of follow up on this, how do you see like the smaller, more agile markets often move faster and they're able to adapt? What is your experience, how you have seen it, and any good case studies and insights you could share?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think, as you say, we can't afford to get even one building wrong, right? If you do, it's all over the news, all over the world, right? So as a result, we're in this position of, conservative action in the way we engineer. Even the way civil engineers dress, they're always everything's very tight. But in terms of what we can actually do now, which I think is perhaps the most critical question, AI is being used for all sorts of things throughout the world that are very effective. But in construction, we need applications that work today or tomorrow, not in 5 years or 10 years. We're already too far behind. As you say, our productivity is dropping in construction. We need to double the rate at which we're building. It's a very poor situation. So I think all I can really say about this is perhaps what we've chosen to do ourselves in my company, which is all of the engineering is done by humans. So the back end of the company is built by PhD students from MIT who have spent their entire life learning how to do the math perfectly, right? And then on top of that, we can build all kinds of exciting, fun, interesting things that accelerate the productivity, right? So we can make AI agents that help explain the results of an engineering optimization to the user, but they only get to learn from our research papers, for instance. And with that, you can start to create legitimate value, and you can start to integrate, to your point, these very complex objectives. So traditionally, in the world of engineering that I'm used to working in, engineering software is to make sure the building doesn't fall down, right? Now, you can have an engineering software that always makes sure the building doesn't fall down, but could allow you to optimize for new objectives. For instance, the variable cost of steel. So there's a new steel tariff. You want to use a slightly higher strength ratio of cement to the steel, balance out your books a little bit. Normally that would be weeks of really nightmarish engineering. Now you can actually leverage the kind of management of complexity that AI allows to make that a real objective. So you can say to your engineering software, okay, I get it, the building's not going to fall down, but what can we do within building regulations and within the way we already build so that I have a better margin with this change in steel price? And that is now very much a reality. These are tools we can begin to use immediately, and I think safely, because you're balancing what the two groups are good at, humans and machines. So that's my perspective.
No, that's a great insight, and kind of shifting now the conversation to outlook of the future. And I would like to mentor ask Kosovo lens. So basically, Kosovo becoming execution engine for Europe's built environment, what is one partnership or capability that you recommend that we should prioritize for the next 12 months? Where would you focus and where do you focus?
Building codes, I would love just to in the United States there is an International Code Council, and we have been working with them. And there is a state program for industrialization. For example, we have a house plan that we have certified according to ICC codes for the state of Texas. So once you do that, so a lot of procedures, I can tell you that we have gone through, a lot of inspections, months and years, in terms of, again, design, engineering, certification. That's why we have to bring AI there. To help and to figure out that not in a matter of, months, but in a matter of hours. And if we have a house that is ICC certified, it means that building in Texas, it means that we can build in 18 states, United States. So this is a house plan that we can build like in half of United States today. And certified, engineered, designed in Pristina. This is one thing. Second thing, Germany. There is a program called KW40 and a QNG program. What is this KW40? KW40 is the highest energy efficiency standard. It means that there are subsidized interest rates if you build with this standard. So KW55 actually is lower standard. 75 is a lower standard, but the highest standard is KW40. And we have built with this standard in Germany, all over Germany. And not just KW40, but we have built also with QNG. It means that all the matter that we put on the house are with, eco-bio-green based. So moving from the culture that the land will actually give us, the food, now we have the culture that the land is giving us a shelter. And these are all, certified and tested procedures. We have a building in Tokyo, for example, for 13th century, 13-story plus, that is standing there. So wood-based structures are very durable structure in terms of earthquakes, in terms of fire. So all of the standards, like in Germany, they call Brandschutz, Schallschutz, Wärmeschutz, all of these, like, heating and cooling and, fire and all of these standards, we already have solved and already built with these standards. So off-site construction is, again, the future. With off-site construction, again, there are no people on the line. And it's not only man business, it's also women business. It's also a robotic business. Today, as we are speaking, there are lines, robotic lines, that you can build a panel, 9 meters the length, 2.7 meters the height, or 9 feet, 30 feet, the length, within, 5.5 minutes. this is already done. But the only problem, again, that we have to emphasize on this room, and we are talking about, again, a housing problem. It's not only Kosovo problem. It's not only European problem. It's a global problem, okay? And affordability is the biggest problem here. So we have to change how we design, we have to change how we build, we have to change how, from the materials that we build off, we have to change the design of the house in terms of energy efficiency, instead of 500 euro to be 100 euro. So all of these metrics, all of these inputs, make it, how to say, affordable, and then accessible, and then scalable. Back to Kosovo. Again, we are one of, not the biggest builder in Kosovo, but I think that we are one of the most premium builders in Kosovo. We always set standards for others. Actually, today we are building in Kosovo 2 towers. Actually, it's going to be administrative buildings, both of them. 20-story each. And since we have Insta Innovation Center, that we have scaled this Pllana Ventures, Pllana Capital, Instabuilt, and Cherry Communities, now we are doing Insta Innovation Hub, or Innovation Hub. What is this Innovation Hub all about? So we are bringing the entire ecosystem on these 2 towers and helping them with the network, with certification, with the supply chain, with the logistics and distribution, and the market, so they can scale the same way that we are doing. Imagine if, window producer. They produce windows in Kosovo market. But if they sell windows to one of the Instabuilt homes, and if that is in code compliance in 100% with Texas market, believe me, that window can be sold in all over Texas market. And you know how big is Texas market? Is 9th, biggest world economy, and it is like 7 times bigger than, it's 30 times than ex-Yugoslavia. So this is the market that I'm talking about. So imagine an ecosystem, 25 factories that are working together with us, building a small house, tiny house, sent to Texas. Everything is certified and, licensed and design engineered and certified. So they can, imagine, be part of the Texas if they are part of one tiny house. So again, Kosovo is a hub. Kosovo is, the future of the housing. Believe me, I'm not here selling, a buzzword. I'm trying to bring a real pragmatic scenario, because I told you, I've built 26,000 homes and apartments. I'm a doer. I'm not a dreamer. I've done things, in my life. And the reason why I'm here is that I want to tell the world that we can change construction industry. We can change the real estate industry. From on-site to off-site, from carbon to eco-bio-green based, and then real estate connected and sharing. Vertical farming and everything in between. And imagine if we power by blockchain and tokenization and smart contracts, so we can also have scalability in play. So Kosovo has a solution for that. Kosovo is not bringing to Europe problems, but is not bringing to Europe immigration anymore. Not in the United States, same thing, but Kosovo is bringing a solution. And that's why you saw also our president today with President Trump, that this is who we are. We are a young country, but we have a big time, solution. Global problems require a global solution, and you have in House of Kosovo and in country of Kosovo. So thank you again.
What a wonderful insight, and I would like to now enter anything to add on that. What is the prioritization that you see right now and these opportunities coming? So from your expertise.
So in terms of construction engineering, I wouldn't add more to mentor. I would focus more in terms of the central planning. So I think there are a lot of willing, let's say, construction companies willing to construct. However, we need to know where the demand is. So, and for that, we need to understand more where demand is highest. And this typically is done by the central governments or the local governments, having a clear plan how they want to develop their cities, having master's plans and understanding how residential communities should be built, and the infrastructure around them, not only roads, but also schooling, nursery, and everything else, so that everything is proportional. We can feed more people without observing the feeling of overpopulation. The moment we have a clear view of how the cities want to grow, then we as developers can take on the challenge and build according to where the countries want to do that. So this is something that I think Europe has to work a bit more on. I have experience on some of the countries, and I've seen that some of the countries, for example, in Europe, although they are one of the strongest in Europe, for example, are least digitalized, in terms of processes and everything else. My suggestion is more digitalization. For example, application process is done digitally. It more, let's say, transparency in tracking, how this is done. More transparency in communication on, for example, where the issues are, so that there is more quick turnaround in terms of reviewing, let's say, construction applications, so that a developer that has found a region that needs housing can quickly get the permit to start that. The moment this is done afterwards with the current, which I think is the most critical factor in terms of ensuring that that the developer can have the expected return. The longer a developer has to wait in terms of getting the permitting and everything else, he has to require a higher selling price in order to get the targeted return, for example. So this is a link to affordability. This means AI can, after data integration, AI can help in forecasting population flow. So where there is a high demand, where is less demand, because I think, as Alice mentioned, there are buildings that are empty, for example. It means that it's not that we don't have buildings, it's just that we don't have them where they are needed. And centralized planning is a very important, at least having an idea. The way then afterwards each family wants to build their house, it's their wish, they can do it the way they want. This would be maybe one way, would be very, very helpful to do it. And in order to another perspective, looking at the engineering perspective, is the moment a house is built, I think it's very important to have a digitalized, let's say, image of this house stored in the local governments, right? So that you can then in the future use it in order to do different testing or different, let's say, scenario simulations when you talk about housing. Okay, thank you.
That's great. And now I know we have 7 minutes left, but I would like to shift to people. I know we've been discussing about AI, risks, opportunities, but the talent was one that we mentioned in the beginning that is a challenge and also opportunity. So, Sandy, I would like to ask, and please chip in everyone, how can digital native talent really be effectively paired with the European construction leaders to deliver these measurable outcomes? So how can we really match? There is talent that it will be bringing value to construction, especially within AI.
Well, I mean, I think especially within AI, you've seen that the people who actually build the systems are in extremely, extremely high demand, right? There's all these jokes in the US that they're being paid better than football players. And they're 22 years old. Whether that makes sense, I don't know. But right now, construction doesn't really look exciting enough to attract that talent, to be honest. I don't think any part of construction does. And so I think we have to imagine a way to create a sort of stream for those opportunities. And I think it will come, but I think Europe is actually already better positioned to do this, as I was saying, because of the nature of the way research happens here with industry. And European nations and construction firms here should make absolutely as much use of that as they can, because you will be able to accelerate very quickly from a research idea into a fully implemented, scalable product system now that we have these AI tools to even assist in building them, right? So I would say that's my approach. I would also encourage people to think through what they can do within their construction space or their real estate space to create opportunities that frame these extremely difficult problems in a people-centric way, right? Of course, people want to build tools that affect everyone. And right now, construction somehow doesn't feel like the primary part of the conversation, even though, of course, after, I don't know, air, water, and food, what is more important than shelter, right? But it doesn't feel like that's where it is in the hierarchy of, what are cool, amazing things I can work on in the world of technology. So we have to come up with some way to approach that. I'm not sure exactly what the answer is. But.
Based on our experience, I would be a little more optimistic. So we started on our AI journey over 10, 12 years ago. And it was fascinating because we really had two different worlds. We had the cement heads and the digi heads. And they talked like this. The one didn't understand the other. And it took a while to get them to speak the same language. But we got there. And by the way, I think there are two key components in making that happen. One is to get everyone excited and educated, and I'll come back to that. And the second is some people who have that gift, they're integrators. In my mind, they're even more important than their AI specialists. The people who can listen to both sides and bring them together. And what happened is it took us a while, but by the time they worked together, then we came up with solutions that bridge the physical world in which we lived in the AI world. So we don't need top-notch AI talent. We will not develop the next ChatGPT. What we need to do is take those tools and get people interested enough and excited enough that they invest in understanding them. Okay? And I think what we're investing in is we don't know how the world will develop. I think we all have very little understanding of what the AI will lead to in 5 or 10 years. What we do know is that the more people we have in the organization who can speak the language, who can use it, the application part, not the creation part, which is the difficult part, the better. So we are investing a lot in creating that excitement and that education within the company. And the challenge I have, just to tie it to the previous conversation, so we have that ability in-house, and we have our own data sets. And the crucial thing that I think we're very far from bridging is how do we then connect our data sets with your data sets and our people with your people, and we are very far from that.
That is great. And just to conclude, we have a few more minutes. Any insights, anything that you would like to add and we haven't shared yet?
There's a nice saying that, how to eat the elephant. And the answer is one bite at a time. So structure set you free. We have to set the structure. For our people, we have built, the vision. So this is a problem, this is a solution, this is a system. So construction industry needs an operative system. So it's a technology, operative system. It's not anymore a construction industry that you have to go on site, it's sunny, it's raining, and it's factory-built environment. So this is now happening. It's not a fantasy. People love to work with us and love to work with Instabuilt. Instabuilt is a construction system that now we are franchising. So we have built McDonald's of the industry. This is what we have done. I'm not teasing here. I'm not joking. But we have done. And now we are preparing the infrastructure to franchise it in US and in Europe. So back to people. People, problem. And the problem is that, again, let's say the resistance is too big that it's hard to go there. But long story short, Insight Innovation Center is a training center. Innovation Hub is innovation, in a training center. That concierge program that we are helping, people to figure out that a global problem needs a global solution. And we have them in Pristina, and we have a solution in Pristina.
Final words.
So I also fully support. We need integrators, I think. We need people that think of not doing something just to use it once, but to create a system that can be reused, right? Can produce. And I think Mentor also explained very well their perspective in this direction. And I think here in Europe, I think we should learn, although there are so many languages, we should learn how we can make data speak one language, How the data, I fully agree with that. So how can we standardize data and I think also standardize testing? Same as what Mentor, we should have one standard for the entire Europe so that whatever part is being developed can interfit with different parts and is standardized, and whatever we're building now will be here in the next 100 years. So we don't want to build something that it's reliable just for 10 years and has a guarantee for 10 years because on the 11th maybe the floor, the ceiling is going to fall. It has to be here for the next 100 years. And AI can help with the the processing of this data and everything else.
Yes. Thank you. What an incredible conversation. Thank you all. Thank you.